Strategy Safari, a guided tour through the wilds of strategic management by Henry Mintzberg, Bruce Ahlstrand, and Joseph Lampel is a masterfully structured and intellectually engaging book that explores the rich, chaotic terrain of strategic thinking. Rather than promoting a single, grand theory of strategy, the authors invite readers on a metaphorical safari, introducing 10 distinct schools of thought, each representing a unique lens for understanding how organizations formulate and execute strategy. The journey reveals that strategy is not a fixed science or art, but a diverse and often conflicting ecosystem of ideas. The book opens with a fundamental provocation, that strategy is one of the most overused and misunderstood terms in business. The authors warn against the dangers of overly simplistic definitions and urge readers to see strategy as multifaceted and evolving. The safari metaphor is a deliberate choice. It implies a landscape both wondrous and wild, full of different creatures, strategists, terrains, models, and climates, contexts. Right away, the reader is positioned not as a passive learner, but as an explorer navigating complexity. The first school introduced is the design school, which views strategy formation as a process of conscious thought. Drawing heavily from the Harvard Business School tradition, this school emphasizes internal capabilities matched against external threats and opportunities, leading to clear, deliberate plans. While appealing in its simplicity, the authors critique its assumptions of rationality and full knowledge, warning that the real world rarely conforms to such neat balance. Next is the planning school, which formalizes strategy through rigorous procedures, timelines, and checklists. Influenced by military planning, this approach values control, predictability, and measurable progress. The authors point out its strengths in stable environments but argue it often collapses under conditions of change and innovation, where spontaneity and flexibility are essential. The positioning school, shaped by thinkers like Michael Porter, brings a quantitative rigor to strategy, focusing on industry structure, competitive forces, and positioning within the market. Here, strategy is less about vision and more about data-driven choices. The authors recognize its analytical power but also caution that it can reduce strategy to a static exercise in number crunching, ignoring internal culture and human behavior. The entrepreneurial school puts the spotlight on visionaries, the Steve Jobs types, who shape strategy through instinct and imagination. Strategy here is bold, intuitive, and driven by a charismatic leader's unique perspective. While this school celebrates creativity and risk-taking, the authors highlight the dangers of hubris and overdependence on a single figure. When the leader stumbles, the entire strategy can falter. With the cognitive school, the terrain shifts to the mind of the strategist. This perspective considers how biases, mental models, and perception influence strategic thinking. Strategy is shaped by how individuals process information. This school adds psychological depth but is harder to operationalize, as cognitive patterns are difficult to observe and even harder to manage in organizational settings. The learning school views strategy not as a grand plan but as an emergent process. Organizations learn from trial and error, adapting strategies in real time based on feedback and experience. This school resonates with complex, dynamic environments where rigid planning fails. The authors celebrate its realism but note it can lead to drift if not anchored by purpose or structure. The Power School introduces political dynamics into the strategy mix. It sees strategy as the outcome of negotiation, conflict, and coalition building, both inside organizations and in their external ecosystems. Far from being a clean intellectual process, strategy here is messy and political. The authors appreciate this school's gritty realism but worry that it may foster cynicism or paralysis if power games dominate substance. The cultural school brings attention to shared values, beliefs, and norms. It treats strategy as a product of organizational identity and collective meaning-making. Culture shapes what is seen as possible or appropriate. While powerful in fostering cohesion, this school can resist change and may struggle in diverse or rapidly shifting environments where cultural unity becomes a liability rather than a strength. The environmental school takes a deterministic view, arguing that strategy is not crafted but imposed by external forces. Organizations survive by adapting to their environments, often reactively. It borrows from systems theory and ecology, treating firms as organisms shaped by their surroundings. This school offers humility, reminding strategists of their limits, but may lead to fatalism, discouraging innovation or resistance. Finally, the configuration school serves as a synthesis and culmination of the journey. It views strategy formation as a process of transformation through stable stages and episodic shifts. Organizations evolve through configurations, periods of consistency, punctuated by revolutions. This school integrates elements from the others, emphasizing timing, fit, and context. It suggests that strategy is about understanding the rhythms of change and knowing when to adapt or overhaul. One of the most compelling features of strategy safari is its refusal to privilege one school over the others. The authors advocate a pluralist view. Each school has its time and place, and the best strategists are those who can shift lenses depending on the context. They argue that strategic thinking is a craft that must blend analysis, intuition, experience, and experimentation. Rather than offering prescriptive advice, the book encourages humility and curiosity. Its strength lies in its ability to challenge managerial orthodoxies while offering readers a practical vocabulary for making sense of strategic choices. It resists the allure of one-size-fits-all solutions and embraces complexity with intellectual generosity. The tone throughout is accessible yet scholarly, blending theoretical depth with real-world examples and a dose of humor. The authors balance critique and appreciation, showing how each school contributes something essential to our understanding of strategy. This balanced approach makes the book a rare synthesis of academic insight and practical relevance. By the end of the book, readers are left not with a definitive map of strategic success, but with a backpack full of tools, perspectives, and cautionary tales. The safari metaphor holds throughout, reminding us that the wilds of strategy cannot be tamed by any single theory. Instead, they demand ongoing observation, adaptability, and critical reflection. Ultimately, Strategy Safari is a celebration of strategic diversity. It challenges readers to move beyond slogans and models, and to develop a more nuanced, context-sensitive way of thinking. It teaches that good strategy is not just about making the right decisions, but about knowing how, when, and why those decisions are made. And in doing so, it honors the messy, thrilling, deeply human endeavor that strategic management truly is.